I watched my husband shove our 7-year-old daughter into the muddy puddle outside our house. The sound of her small body hitting the water echoed through the quiet suburban street. Mark stood over Lily, his face twisted with rage, and shouted loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "You're just like your mother, useless and dirty." Time stopped. My grocery bag slipped from my hands, apples rolling across the driveway. Mrs. Patterson from across the street froze mid-wave. Mr. Coleman stopped mowing his lawn. Everyone stared at the scene unfolding on our perfect front yard, the yard Mark spent every Saturday maintaining, the yard that made our family look picture-perfect from the outside. Lily sat in the brown water, her pink dress soaked, her face covered in mud and tears. She looked at me with those big hazel eyes, silently begging me to make it stop. My heart shattered into a million pieces right there on the concrete driveway. Mark turned to walk inside like nothing happened, like he hadn't just destroyed our daughter's spirit in front of the entire neighborhood. Something inside me snapped. I walked toward him slowly, my voice trembling but deadly serious. "You'll regret this, Mark." Mark acted like the Puddle incident never happened. That evening, he sat at the dinner table scrolling through his phone while Lily picked at her food with shaking hands. When I tried to bring it up, he cut me off immediately. "She was being clumsy, running around like a wild animal," he said without looking up. "Maybe if you disciplined her properly, I wouldn't have to step in." I stared at him across the table, this man I'd married 9 years ago. When did he become this person? When did his corrections turn into cruelty? I thought about all the small moments I'd ignored, the harsh words, the cold silences, the way he made Lily flinch when he raised his voice. "She's 7 years old," I whispered. "Exactly. Old enough to learn respect." He finally looked at me, his blue eyes cold. "Or are you going to baby her forever like your mother babied you?" Lily excused herself quietly and disappeared upstairs. I heard her bedroom door close softly, too softly for a child who should be slamming doors and expressing her feelings freely. That night, I checked on her before bed. She was curled up with her stuffed rabbit, pretending to sleep. I saw the dried tear tracks on her cheeks and knew this wasn't a one-time outburst. This was emotional abuse, and it was escalating. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Mark's mother was calling. My stomach dropped. She was worse than him. Patricia Turner stormed through our front door the next morning without knocking. She never knocked. This was technically her house, she'd helped with the down payment and never let us forget it. "I heard about yesterday's embarrassing display," she announced, setting her designer purse on our counter. "The whole neighborhood is talking about how Lily embarrassed this family." I stood there holding my coffee mug, watching this woman invade my space and twist reality. Lily hadn't embarrassed anyone. Mark had. But Patricia had spent 30 years making excuses for her son's behavior, and she wasn't about to stop now. "She's a child who got pushed into a puddle by her father," I said carefully. Patricia's perfectly painted lips curved into a smirk. "Don't be overdramatic, Claire. Mark was teaching her a lesson. You're too soft on that girl. Always have been." She walked past me into the living room, inspecting our home like she was searching for evidence of my failures as a wife and mother. She straightened a picture frame, wiped imaginary dust from the mantel, and sighed dramatically. "Mark works hard to provide for this family. The least you could do is raise a well-behaved daughter." She turned to face me, her expression sharp. "If you can't control your child, I'll handle it myself." The threat hung in the air between us. I knew she meant it. Patricia had always wanted more control over Lily's upbringing, constantly criticizing my parenting choices and undermining my authority. That evening's dinner was torture. Patricia insisted on staying, claiming she wanted to help restore order to this household. She sat at the head of our table like a queen, with Mark on her right looking pleased that his mother was there to support him. Lily sat between us, her small body tense, barely touching her food. I'd made her favorite, spaghetti with meatballs, but she just pushed the noodles around her plate with her fork. "Lily, sit up straight," Patricia commanded. "And stop playing with your food." Do you know how many children would be grateful for a meal like this? Yes, Grandma, Lily whispered. Look at her, Mark, Patricia continued, smiling at her son. So obedient when someone actually disciplines her properly. Claire, you could learn something from this. Mark nodded, cutting into his meatball. Mom's right. Structure and consequences, that's what children need. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. I wanted to scream that love and safety were what children needed, not fear and humiliation. But I'd learned that arguing with both of them together was pointless. Then it happened. Lily reached for her juice and knocked it over. The red liquid spread across the white tablecloth, moving toward Patricia's designer blazer. Time seemed to slow down. Patricia stood up quickly, dodging the spill, then looked at Lily with disgust. Like mother, like daughter, clumsy and careless. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Grandma. It was an accident. After I cleaned up the spill and got Lily ready for bed, I found her sitting on her bedroom floor with her knees pulled to her chest. Her stuffed animals were arranged around her like a protective circle. Mom? Her voice was so small. Can we leave this house someday? My heart broke all over again. I sat down beside her and pulled her into my arms. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and innocence, and I wanted to protect her from everything cruel in this world, including her own father and grandmother. Why do you want to leave, sweetheart? She was quiet for a long moment. Because Daddy doesn't like me anymore. And Grandma Patricia never did. I had no good answer. I couldn't lie and say they loved her when their actions proved otherwise. I couldn't promise we'd leave when I had no money, no job, and nowhere to go. Mark had made sure I was completely dependent on him. I love you enough for everyone, I finally said, kissing the top of her head. And we're going to be okay. But as I said those words, I knew they weren't enough. Love didn't pay bills or provide shelter. Love didn't protect children from emotional abuse. I needed a plan, a way out, something concrete. That night, after Mark fell asleep, I went downstairs. I needed to think, to breathe, to figure out our next move. That's when I saw his phone on the kitchen counter, screen glowing with a new message notification. The text preview was enough to make my blood run cold. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Same hotel? My hand shook as I picked up his phone. I knew his passcode, he'd never changed it from our anniversary date, arrogant enough to believe I'd never check. The messages loaded, and my world tilted on its axis. Dozens of texts from someone named Vanessa. Intimate messages, explicit photos, plans for secret meetings. They'd been seeing each other for 7 months. 7 months of lies while I'd been home raising his daughter, cooking his meals, believing his excuses about late nights at the office. But instead of the crushing heartbreak I expected, I felt something else, clarity. This wasn't about saving our marriage anymore. This was about saving myself and Lily. This affair was my path to freedom, my leverage, my escape route. I grabbed my own phone from my pocket and started taking screenshots. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence. My fingers moved quickly, methodically, as Mark snored upstairs, completely unaware that his carefully constructed lies were crumbling. I sent everything to my email, then to a cloud storage account I'd never told him about. I cleared his notification history so he wouldn't know I'd been in his phone. Then I put it back exactly where I'd found it, face down on the counter, charging cable plugged in at the same angle. My heart pounded as I climbed back into bed beside him, this stranger I'd shared my life with for 9 years. The next morning, I waited until Mark left for work before I made my move. I'd barely slept, too busy planning what I needed to say. Patricia had finally gone home, and for the first time in days, I could breathe in my own house. I walked into our bedroom and confronted him as he was adjusting his tie in the mirror. I know about Vanessa. His hand froze mid-knot. For a split second, I saw panic flash across his face. Then his features rearranged themselves into something cold and calculating. You've been snooping through my phone? He turned to face me, somehow making me the villain in this scenario. That's a violation of privacy, Claire. You're having an affair. And whose fault is that? His voice rose. You drove me to it. You're cold, you're boring, you've let yourself go since having Lily. What did you expect? That I'd just suffer in silence forever? I stared at him, watching him twist reality to suit his narrative. Everything was my fault, his affair, his anger, his cruelty toward our daughter. In his mind, he was the victim. This is exactly why our marriage fell apart, he continued, stepping closer. You're always accusing me, always making me feel guilty for wanting to be happy. Maybe if you'd been a better wife, I wouldn't have needed someone else. Get out, I said quietly. He laughed. This is my house, Claire. My name on the deed, remember? You want to leave, be my guest. But you won't take Lily. The thread echoed in my mind long after Mark left for work. You won't take Lily. He'd said it so casually, like he was commenting on the weather, but I knew he meant it. Patricia had connections, lawyers, judges, people who owed her favors. If I tried to leave, they'd destroy me in court. But I wasn't the same woman who'd let him push our daughter into a puddle while I stood frozen. Something had shifted inside me. I was done being passive. That afternoon, I downloaded a voice recording app on my phone. I tested it several times to make sure it worked, that it could capture conversations clearly even when my phone was in my pocket. Then I waited. Mark came home late, smelling like perfume and lies. I'd made dinner, played the dutiful wife, pretended everything was normal. Patricia called during dessert, and Mark put her on speaker. How's Claire behaving? She asked, as if I wasn't sitting right there. Better, Mark said. I think she's finally learning her place. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was counting down. My phone was recording every word from my pocket, capturing his arrogance, his mother's cruelty, building my case piece by piece. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Mark exploded over something trivial. I'd folded his shirts wrong. I wish you and that brat never existed, he shouted, throwing the laundry basket across the room. My life was perfect before you trapped me with that kid. My phone caught every syllable. The next day, I called my old college roommate, Naomi. She'd become a family lawyer, one of the best in the state. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. Mark had gradually isolated me from all my friends, but she answered on the second ring. Claire? Oh my God, I've been so worried about you. I broke down and told her everything. The abuse, the affair, the threats, the recordings. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Can you meet me tomorrow? Bring everything you have. The next morning, I told Mark I was taking Lily to the pediatrician. Instead, I drove to Naomi's office downtown. Lily colored in the waiting room while Naomi and I sat in her conference room, my phone between us as she listened to the recordings. Her expression grew darker with each clip. When Mark's voice came through saying he wished we never existed, she stopped the recording. This is enough for custody, she said. But we need more for everything else, assets, alimony, protection orders. How much documentation can you gather? Whatever you need. Good. Because Claire, you're only going to get one chance to do this right. If you try to leave and fail, if he gets any warning, he'll hide everything and make your life hell. She looked me straight in the eye. Can you keep playing along while we build an airtight case? I thought about Lily, about giving her a life where she didn't flinch when her father entered the room. Yes. Playing the obedient wife was harder than I expected. Every smile felt like swallowing glass. Every time Mark touched me, my skin crawled. But I did it. I cooked his favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, pretended the affair didn't exist. Mark's coworkers came over for a dinner party. He spent the entire evening showing off, making subtle digs at me disguised as humor. Claire's not the best cook, but she tries hard, he said, laughing. Sometimes I wonder what I saw in her, but then I remember, oh wait, I don't. Everyone laughed uncomfortably. His boss, Mr. Crawford, shifted awkwardly. His wife, Helen, looked at me with something like pity. But I just smiled and served dessert, my phone recording every humiliating word from the kitchen counter. After everyone left, Mark was in a great mood. See how much better things are when you don't cause problems? He actually kissed my forehead, like he was rewarding a dog for good behavior. Later, Helen Crawford sent me a message on social media. Are you okay? You don't deserve to be treated like that. If you need anything, please reach out. I stared at that message for a long time. Someone had noticed. Someone saw through Mark's charm to the cruelty underneath. I saved her message, added it to my growing file of evidence, and thanked her. Meanwhile, Naomi was working behind the scenes, gathering financial records, building our case, preparing for war. Everything fell apart on a Tuesday morning. I was making breakfast when someone knocked on the door. Two people from social services stood on my porch with serious expressions and a clipboard. Mrs. Turner? We've received a report of child neglect. We need to come in and assess the situation. My blood turned to ice. Patricia. She'd filed a false report, claiming I was mentally unstable and neglecting Lily. I let them in, my hands shaking, knowing this could destroy everything. They asked to see Lily's room, questioned her gently about her home life, inspected our kitchen and bathrooms. The whole time, my mind raced. If they believed Patricia's lies, they could take Lily away. Mark would get exactly what he wanted. But I'd learned to be prepared. When they asked about the allegations, I calmly showed them Lily's medical records, every checkup on time, every vaccination completed. I showed them her school reports praising her attendance and performance. I showed them photos of us together, happy and healthy. Then I showed them something else, a video from my phone of Mark shoving Lily into the puddle. The social worker's expression changed immediately. Mrs. Turner, this is actually evidence of abuse by your husband. I know, I said quietly. I've been documenting everything. The older social worker, Mr. Hughes, looked at me with understanding. As they were leaving, he leaned close and whispered, "Keep documenting. You're smarter than they think. And lawyer up if you haven't already." When Mark came home that evening, I was ready. He was furious about the social services visit, apparently they'd called him at work to ask questions. You told them I pushed Lily? You're making me look like a monster. You did push her. That's not the point. His face turned red. You're supposed to protect this family's reputation, not destroy it. We fought for hours. He called me every name in the book, blamed me for ruining his life, threatened to make sure I never saw Lily again. I recorded every word, staying just calm enough to keep him talking, letting him dig his own grave deeper with each accusation. Finally, exhausted, he grabbed my phone from my hand. I'm sick of you being on this thing constantly. Who are you talking to? Before I could stop him, he threw it against the wall. The screen shattered, pieces of glass scattering across our hardwood floor. He looked satisfied with himself, like he'd won something. He didn't know everything was backed up to the cloud. He didn't know Naomi had copies of everything. He didn't know that breaking my phone was just another piece of evidence of his violent behavior. The next day, I bought a new phone and something else, a small camera disguised as a clock. I set it up in our living room where Lily played, where Mark often lost his temper. If he put his hands on her again, I'd have proof. The camera caught everything. 3 days after I installed it, Mark came home stressed from work. Lily was playing in the living room, building a tower with her blocks. She was humming to herself, lost in her own world, being a normal 7-year-old. Can you be quiet? Mark snapped. I've had a long day. Lily immediately stopped humming. Sorry, Daddy. But it wasn't enough. He walked over to where she was playing and kicked her block tower, sending pieces flying across the room. Lily yelped in surprise as blocks hit her. One left a small red mark on her arm. I said quiet means quiet, he shouted. Then he grabbed her shoulder roughly and pushed her. She stumbled backward, hitting her knee on the coffee table. I rushed in from the kitchen. "Mark, stop." He turned on me. "Stay out of this. She needs to learn." I helped Lily up, checked her injuries, took her upstairs while Mark paced in the living room, muttering about disrespect and disobedience. The whole time, the hidden camera watched and recorded from the shelf. That night, I downloaded the footage to Naomi's secure server. We had video evidence now, clear, undeniable proof of abuse. When I watched it back, seeing my daughter's face as her father hurt her, I cried. But I also felt something else, determination. This was ending soon. Patricia called 2 days later with exciting news. "Mark, I've organized a family reunion this weekend. Everyone's coming, your brothers, your aunts and uncles, the whole family. It'll be wonderful to all be together again." My stomach sank. A family reunion meant a room full of people who'd take Mark's side, who'd believe whatever story Patricia told them. It meant being outnumbered and judged. But Naomi saw it differently when I called her. This could be perfect. Let them all gather. Let Patricia run her mouth. We're almost ready to file anyway, let them have their little party. The weekend arrived. Patricia had rented a private room at an expensive restaurant downtown. She'd spent weeks planning every detail, making sure everything was perfect to show off her successful son and his lovely family. Lily wore a blue dress I'd bought her. She held my hand tighter than usual as we walked into the restaurant. The room was full of Turners, Mark's brothers Kyle and Preston, their wives, Patricia's sisters, various cousins I barely knew. Patricia held court at the center of it all, greeting everyone with kisses and compliments. When she saw me, her smile tightened. "Claire. How nice of you to dress appropriately for once." The reunion started pleasantly enough. People ate, chatted, shared stories. But I noticed the glances, the whispers. Patricia had been busy spreading her version of events, poor Mark with his difficult wife, poor Patricia trying to help her troubled daughter-in-law. Halfway through the meal, Patricia stood and clinked her glass for attention. Everyone quieted down, turning to face her. She smiled widely, loving the spotlight. "I want to toast to something important," she began. "To real mothers, women who sacrifice everything for their children, who raise them with proper values, who don't let their personal problems affect their parenting." She looked directly at me as she said it. The message was clear to everyone in the room. Several people shifted uncomfortably. Mark's brother Preston coughed. But others nodded, agreeing with her implied criticism. To real mothers, several voices echoed, raising their glasses. Lily's hand tightened around mine under the table. She knew the toast was an attack on me, on us. My heart pounded, anger and humiliation warring inside me. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. I stood up slowly, pulling out my phone. The room went quiet, everyone watching me. Patricia's smile faltered slightly, uncertainty flickering across her face. "Before we continue celebrating real mothers," I said calmly, "I think everyone should hear what kind of father Mark really is." I pressed play on a voice recording. Mark's voice filled the room. "I wish you and that brat never existed. My life was perfect before you trapped me with that kid." Gasps erupted around the table. Patricia's face went pale. Mark lunged across the table, trying to grab my phone, but I stepped back. "That's not even the worst part," I said. I connected my phone to the restaurant's TV screen. I'd called ahead and arranged it with the manager, claiming I was showing a family video. The screen flickered to life, showing our living room. Everyone watched as Mark pushed Lily into the puddle, his voice cruel and loud. "You're just like your mother, useless and dirty." The room exploded. Mark's aunt gasped. Kyle's wife covered her mouth in horror. Preston stood up, staring at his brother with disgust. Even Patricia's sisters looked shocked. But I wasn't done. I played the video of Mark kicking Lily's blocks, pushing her, the red mark on her arm. I showed them who he really was when no one was watching. "Stop it!" Patricia shrieked. This is a private family matter. You had no right. I had every right to protect my daughter, I said. And now everyone knows the truth. Mark's boss, Mr. Crawford, was at the reunion. Patricia had invited him to show off her successful son. Now he stood up, his face grave. Mark, we'll be discussing this Monday morning. This behavior is unacceptable. Mark tried to salvage the situation, stammering excuses, blaming stress and misunderstandings. But the damage was done. His carefully constructed image had shattered in front of everyone who mattered. I gathered my things and Lily's hand. We're leaving now. Anyone who has questions can contact my lawyer, Naomi Rodriguez. As we walked out, Preston caught my arm. I'm sorry. We didn't know. His wife hugged Lily gently. By Monday morning, Mark was suspended from his job pending an internal investigation into his conduct. Mr. Crawford had seen the videos and couldn't ignore them. The company had a strict code of ethics policy. Patricia tried damage control, calling family members to spin the story. She claimed I'd edited the videos, that I was mentally unstable, that I'd orchestrated everything to destroy her son. But too many people had seen the raw footage. The truth was undeniable. That evening, Mark came home early, his face dark with rage. You've destroyed me, he said. My job, my reputation, my family, all gone because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. You destroyed yourself. He grabbed the laptop from the counter and threw it against the wall. Everything I've worked for, gone. And for what? To protect that girl? That girl is your daughter. She's not my daughter, he screamed. She's yours from before, and I was stupid enough to take on someone else's burden. Lily heard it from upstairs. I saw her face peek around the corner, saw the hurt in her eyes before she disappeared back into her room. She'd always known Mark had adopted her, but hearing him call her a burden shattered something inside her. That night, I filed for divorce. Naomi had all the evidence ready, the recordings, the videos, the affair, everything. We filed for full custody, a restraining order, and division of assets. Mark received the papers at work the next day. The retaliation was swift and vicious. Mark drained our joint bank account overnight, transferring everything to an account in his mother's name. I woke up to find our account balance at zero. He packed his things and moved in with Patricia, claiming I'd driven him out of his own home. He told everyone who'd listen that I was trying to steal his money and turn his daughter against him. But Naomi had warned me this might happen. I'd been quietly saving money for months, hiding cash around the house, building a small emergency fund he didn't know about. It wasn't much, only $3,000, but it was enough to survive until the court hearing. I also had evidence of Mark draining the account, which would work against him in court. Every angry, impulsive move he made just strengthened our case. Patricia sent threatening letters through her lawyer, claiming I'd stolen her son's property and alienated him from his child. She tried to get an emergency custody hearing, claiming Lily was in danger with me. But we were ready. Naomi had documented everything, the abuse, the neglect, Patricia's manipulation and false reports. We had medical records, school records, testimony from neighbors who'd witnessed Mark's behavior. The social worker, Mr. Hughes, even volunteered to testify about the false neglect report and what he'd observed during his visit. Your case is solid, Naomi assured me during one of our preparation meetings. We've got enough to win full custody. Mark's affair, his abuse, his mother's interference, it all works in your favor. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning in late October. I barely slept the night before, running through Naomi's instructions in my head. Stay calm. Answer questions directly. Don't let them provoke you. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Mark sat on one side with his lawyer, Mr. Bernard. Patricia had hired the most expensive attorney she could find. Patricia herself sat in the front row, dressed in expensive clothes and fake pearls, ready to testify on her son's behalf. I sat with Naomi, my hands folded in my lap, trying to look composed even though my insides were churning. Lily was with my sister, safe from having to witness this. Mark's lawyer went first, painting me as an unstable mother who'd orchestrated an elaborate scheme to destroy a good man's life. He claimed Mark was a devoted father, a provider, someone who'd made minor mistakes that I'd blown out of proportion. Mr. Turner may have lost his temper once or twice, Mr. Bernard argued, but what parent hasn't? Ms. Turner has weaponized normal parenting frustrations to suit her agenda. Then it was our turn. Naomi stood calmly and addressed Judge Morrison. Your Honor, we have extensive evidence of ongoing emotional and physical abuse, not minor frustrations. She played the recordings. Mark's voice filled the courtroom, cruel and harsh. She showed the videos, Lily in the puddle, Lily being pushed, the red mark on her arm. She presented the affair evidence, the drained bank account, the pattern of manipulation and control. The courtroom was silent except for the damning evidence. When Naomi presented Patricia's false social services report, the judge's expression hardened. Mrs. Patricia Turner filed a knowingly false report of child neglect? Yes, Your Honor, Naomi confirmed. We have testimony from the social worker who investigated. He found no evidence of neglect, only evidence of abuse by the father. Patricia's face turned red. Her lawyer leaned over to whisper urgently in Mark's lawyer's ear. Then came the testimony. Mr. Hughes took the stand and described his visit to our home, what he'd observed, what I'd shown him. Mrs. Turner was documenting abuse to protect her daughter, he said. She was scared but methodical. That's not instability, that's survival. Helen Crawford, Mark's boss's wife, testified about the dinner party and Mark's public humiliation of me. I've never seen someone treated so disrespectfully by their spouse. It was painful to watch. Even Preston, Mark's own brother, testified. I've seen Mark be cruel before, but I didn't realize how bad it was. After seeing those videos, I can't support him in this. Mark took the stand to defend himself. He tried to explain away the Puddle incident as an accident, the recordings as me provoking him, the affair as a cry for help in a loveless marriage. But then Naomi played the video of him saying Lily wasn't his daughter, that she was a burden. The courtroom collectively winced. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Turner, you adopted this child legally, correct? Yes, but. There is no but. You made a commitment. Judge Morrison took 15 minutes to review all the evidence. When she returned, her expression was stern. She looked at Mark with barely concealed disgust. Mr. Turner, in my 20 years on this bench, I've seen many custody disputes. This is one of the clearest cases of abuse and manipulation I've encountered. She adjusted her glasses. You have systematically mistreated your daughter, gaslight your wife, committed adultery, and allowed your mother to terrorize your family. Mark started to speak, but she held up her hand. You've done enough damage. She granted me full custody. Mark was allowed supervised visitation only, 2 hours every other Sunday at a neutral location with a social worker present. Patricia was explicitly banned from being present during any visitation or having any contact with Lily without my written permission. I was awarded the house, majority of the assets, and alimony until I could finish my degree and find work. Mark was ordered to pay child support and cover Lily's medical and educational expenses. Furthermore, Judge Morrison added, I'm referring Mrs. Patricia Turner's false report to the district attorney's office for investigation. Filing false abuse reports wastes resources and damages legitimate cases. Mark stood up, his face purple with rage. This is insane. You can't. I can, and I have. This hearing is concluded. She banged her gavel. Mark stormed out of the courtroom, shouting that I'd regret this, that his mother had connections, that they'd appeal. Patricia followed him, her face twisted with fury, promising her lawyers would fix everything. That night, Lily and I had pizza in our living room now, with no Mark to criticize or control. She asked me what happened at court, and I told her age-appropriate truths. Daddy made some bad choices, we're going to live separately now, and she'd still see him sometimes if she wanted to. Do I have to see him? She asked quietly. Not if you don't want to. You get to choose. She thought about it, eating her pizza slowly. Maybe sometimes. But not Grandma Patricia. She's mean. No, I agreed. Not Grandma Patricia. We spent the evening planning our new life. I was going back to school to finish my nursing degree. Lily wanted to join art classes. We talked about painting her room whatever color she wanted, getting a cat, planting a garden in the spring. For the first time in years, I felt hope. Over the next few weeks, I changed all the locks, opened new bank accounts in just my name, and started erasing Mark's presents from our home. I packed up his things, and Preston came to collect them. He apologized again, promised to check in on us. Lily didn't ask about her father. She seemed lighter, freer, like she'd been holding her breath for years and could finally exhale. Mark tried to contact me several times, alternating between angry texts and apologetic calls. I forwarded everything to Naomi and blocked his number. All communication went through lawyers now. 3 months passed. Christmas came and went, our first peaceful one in years. Lily and I made cookies, watched movies, built a snowman in our front yard. Mrs. Patterson brought over homemade fudge and told me she was proud of how brave I'd been. Then a letter arrived. Not from lawyers this time, but handwritten, addressed to me in Mark's messy scrawl. I debated throwing it away unopened. But curiosity won. I sat at the kitchen table and read. Claire, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I destroyed everything. I've lost my job, they fired me after the videos leaked to colleagues. I've lost my friends. Even my mother barely speaks to me anymore. I'm living in a studio apartment, working temp jobs, realizing everything I threw away. I was cruel to you and Lily. I let my mother poison me against both of you. I wish I could take it back. I wish I could be the man you married, the man who promised to protect Lily when I adopted her. Can I see her again? Can we try again? I'll do therapy, anger management, whatever it takes. Please. I have nothing left. I read it twice. Part of me felt satisfaction that he was facing consequences. Part of me felt sad for the man he could have been. But mostly, I felt nothing. He'd had years to change, years to be better. He chose cruelty instead. I wrote back one line, we already saw the real you. Goodbye, Mark. I mailed it that afternoon and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. There was no anger anymore, no bitterness. Just closure. Naomi called me the next week with news. Patricia had been charged with filing a false police report and was facing fines and community service. Her reputation in her social circles had crumbled, people distanced themselves from her, horrified by what had emerged during the trial. Mark's brothers had apparently confronted Patricia about her role in enabling Mark's behavior. Kyle told me later that they'd always known she was controlling, but they hadn't realized how toxic she'd become until everything came out in court. Preston and I want to stay in touch with Lily, if that's okay, Kyle said when he called. She's our niece, and none of this is her fault. We want her to know she has family who love her. I agreed. Unlike Mark and Patricia, Kyle and Preston had apologized, acknowledged the harm, and wanted to make things right. Lily deserved to have family who treated her with respect. Mark tried a few more times to reach out, but I never responded. Eventually, the letters stopped coming. I heard through Preston that Mark had moved to another state, trying to start over somewhere nobody knew his story. I didn't care anymore. He was a chapter in my life that was finally closed. 6 months after the trial, Lily entered an art contest at school. She'd been painting and drawing constantly, processing everything through her art. Her teacher, Ms. Wilson, said art was helping her heal. The contest theme was freedom, and Lily painted something that took my breath away. It showed a little girl standing in a puddle, but instead of looking sad, she was smiling. Flowers grew from the muddy water around her feet, reaching up toward a bright sun. In the corner, written in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, was the title, Freedom. She won first place. The local newspaper wanted to do a story about the young artist. They came to our house, took photos of Lily with her painting, asked her about her inspiration. "I used to be sad a lot," Lily told the reporter. "But Mom taught me that bad things can't keep growing if you don't give them water. So I decided to grow flowers instead." The reporter looked at me with understanding in her eyes. She'd probably heard rumors about our custody battle, small towns talk. "That's very wise," she said to Lily. The article ran the following week with a photo of Lily holding her painting, smiling genuinely for maybe the first time in years. People stopped me at the grocery store to tell me how proud they were of us, how brave we'd been. Mrs. Patterson framed the newspaper article and hung it in her living room. "That girl is going places," she said. At Lily's art exhibition at the community center, dozens of people showed up. My sister came with her family. Naomi brought her wife and kids. Kyle and Preston came with their families, bringing flowers and praise for their niece. Even Mr. Hughes, the social worker, stopped by to congratulate her. Lily stood beside her painting, explaining her artwork to interested viewers, no longer shy or afraid. She'd found her voice through art, and watching her bloom was the greatest gift I could have received. A journalist from a parenting magazine approached me, asking about the story behind the painting. Word had spread about our custody battle and how we'd survived. "What would you tell other mothers in similar situations?" she asked. I looked at Lily, radiant and confident, and thought about everything we'd endured. I'd tell them that protecting your child isn't about avoiding conflict. Sometimes it's about walking straight into the fire so they can find their way out. And about the father? I thought about Mark, about the man who'd pushed our daughter into a puddle and called her worthless. He pushed her into the dirt, but she learned to bloom from it. That's what matters now. The journalist smiled and jotted notes. Before leaving, she handed me her card. "If you ever want to share your full story, we'd be honored to publish it. Stories like yours give other women courage." I took the card, thanked her, and tucked it in my purse. Maybe someday I'd tell the complete story. Maybe it would help someone else find the strength to leave, to fight, to protect their children from people who should have loved them. But for now, I was content to stand in that community center, watching my daughter shine, knowing we'd survived the worst and come out stronger. Lily ran over to me, her face glowing. "Mom, someone wants to buy my painting. Can we make prints so I can keep one?" "Of course, sweetheart." She hugged me tight, and I breathed in the strawberry scent of her shampoo, grateful for every moment that had led us here. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she said something that made everything worth it. "Mom, I'm not sad anymore." "Are you?" I kissed her forehead and smiled. "No, baby. I'm not sad anymore either." She fell asleep quickly, peaceful and secure. I stood in her doorway watching her for a moment, this brave little girl who'd helped save us both. Mark had tried to break us, to make us believe we were worthless. But we'd proven him wrong. We'd proven that love wasn't about control or cruelty, it was about showing up, fighting back, and choosing each other every single day. As I closed her door and walked downstairs to our quiet, peaceful home, I realized something important. I'd spent years trying to save a marriage that was already dead. The real work had been saving myself and my daughter. And we'd done exactly that. The small box Mark had given me years ago, the one with our wedding rings, sat in a drawer somewhere, forgotten. I didn't need those rings anymore. I didn't need his approval, his love, or his validation. I had something better, freedom, peace, and a daughter who knew her worth. He'd pushed her into a puddle and called her a pig, thinking he could break her spirit. Instead, he'd lost everything while we gained ourselves. That was justice enough.